Marcus Chen stood at the edge of the Grand Assembly Hall, watching alien delegates from across the galaxy mock him with their strange sounds and gestures. The Galactic Council had been laughing at him for the past 10 minutes, and he honestly couldn't blame them. A human asking for the hand of Princess Zara, daughter of the most powerful king in known space, seemed like the biggest joke they had heard in centuries. The Vorthak delegation made clicking sounds that served as their laughter, while the crystalline Nexari chimed in harmonious mockery. Even the usually serious Drachmori were showing their teeth in what passed for amusement among their species. Marcus felt the heat rising in his cheeks, but he kept his chin up and his shoulders straight. Silence. King Valdros's voice boomed across the massive chamber. The alien monarch stood nearly 12 feet tall, his forearms crossed over his broad chest. His skin shimmered like liquid mercury, and his 6 eyes glowed with an inner fire that could make even the bravest warriors tremble. The human speaks of marriage to my daughter. This is no small matter. Princess Zara sat beside her father's throne, and Marcus couldn't help but steal another glance at her. She was unlike any being he had ever seen. Her skin held the same metallic sheen as her father's, but softer, more elegant. Her hair flowed like silver water down her back, and her 2 main eyes were the color of distant galaxies, while her smaller secondary eyes sparkled with intelligence and curiosity. Your Majesty, Marcus began, his voice carrying clearly through the vast space despite his nervousness. I understand that my request seems unusual. Humans are new to the galactic community. We've only been part of the Council for 5 years. But I believe that love knows no boundaries, not even those between species or worlds. The laughter started again, louder this time. Ambassador Krex of the Zephyrian Empire stood up, his snake-like body coiling as he spoke. This is ridiculous. Humans are barely civilized. They still fight wars on their own planet. They've never even conquered another star system. What could this creature possibly offer our princess? They're a violent species, added Counselor Thera from the insectoid hive worlds. Their history is filled with bloodshed and destruction. They would bring nothing but chaos to the royal bloodline. Marcus listened to the accusations pile up. They weren't entirely wrong about human history, but they didn't understand the full picture. Humans had indeed fought many wars, but they had also shown incredible capacity for growth, love, and sacrifice. They had created beautiful art, made stunning scientific discoveries, and shown kindness to other species even when those species looked down on them. King Valdros raised one of his massive hands, and the chamber fell silent again. You speak of love, young human, but love alone is not enough for a royal marriage. In our tradition, those who seek the hand of a princess must prove their worth through great deeds. They must show courage, wisdom, and the ability to protect what they cherish. The king's 6 eyes focused on Marcus with an intensity that made the human feel like he was being examined under a microscope. Tell me, Marcus Chen of Earth, what great deeds have you accomplished? What battles have you won? What impossible challenges have you overcome? Marcus took a deep breath. This was the moment he had been preparing for during his long journey to the galactic capital. Your Majesty, I know that humans are young in galactic terms. We haven't conquered star systems or built vast empires, but we have something else. We have determination. We have the ability to keep fighting when everything seems hopeless. We protect those we love even when the odds are impossible. Pretty words, scoffed Ambassador Krex. But words are wind. Where are your achievements? The Vorthak have conquered 300 worlds. The Drachmori have built ships that can cross the galaxy in days. The Nexari have unlocked the secrets of time itself. What have humans done except make war on their own kind? Princess Zara spoke for the first time, her voice like music made of starlight. Father, perhaps we should hear what he proposes. If he believes so strongly in human capabilities, let him prove it. The king nodded slowly. Very well. Marcus Chen, I will give you one chance to prove that humans are worthy of joining the royal family, but it will not be easy. In fact, it will be the most difficult challenge ever given to a suitor. Marcus felt his heart racing, but he kept his voice steady. I'm listening, Your Majesty. There is an ancient evil that has plagued our galaxy for thousands of years. The Shadow Fleet appears every few centuries, destroying entire civilizations before vanishing back into the dark spaces between stars. Our greatest warriors have tried to stop them. Our most brilliant scientists have studied them. Our most powerful weapons have failed against them. The chamber grew quiet as the king continued. The Shadow Fleet was last seen 3 months ago, attacking the Outer Rim territories. They destroyed 7 colonies before disappearing again. Every major power in the galaxy has lost ships trying to track them down. If you can find and defeat the Shadow Fleet, if you can end this ancient threat once and for all, then you will have proven that humans deserve a place among the great powers of the galaxy. The alien delegates began murmuring among themselves. Marcus could hear the doubt in their voices, could see the disbelief in their strange faces. They thought the king was giving him an impossible task, essentially a polite way of saying no. "Your Majesty," Marcus said, bowing his head respectfully, "I accept your challenge. Give me a ship and a crew and I will find the Shadow Fleet. I will end their reign of terror." "You may take any ship from our fleet," the king replied, "and you may recruit any crew willing to follow you. But know this, young human. Many have tried this task before you. None have returned." As Marcus left the assembly hall, he could hear the aliens still laughing behind him. They saw him as a foolish young human who had just volunteered for a suicide mission. But Marcus had something they didn't understand about humans yet. He had hope, determination, and the stubborn refusal to give up that had carried his species from cave-dwelling primitives to starfaring explorers in just a few thousand years. Princess Zara caught up with him in the corridor outside the chamber. "You don't have to do this," she said quietly. "My father's challenge is meant to be impossible. He's trying to let you down gently." Marcus looked into her galaxy-colored eyes and smiled. "Your Highness, you don't know humans very well yet. Impossible is just another word for something that hasn't been done yet." Marcus spent the next 3 days in the royal shipyards examining the vessels available to him. The alien ships were impressive, built with technologies that made Earth's most advanced spacecraft look like paper airplanes. Crystal-powered engines that could bend space itself, weapon systems that could crack planets, and shields that had never been penetrated by any known force. But as he walked among these technological marvels, Marcus realized something important. These ships had all been built by civilizations that thought in terms of overwhelming power and technological superiority. The Shadow Fleet had been defeating ships like these for thousands of years. Maybe what was needed wasn't more of the same, but something completely different. "Not what you expected?" Princess Zara appeared beside him, moving with the fluid grace that seemed natural to her people. "They're incredible," Marcus admitted, running his hand along the hull of a Drakmori dreadnought. "But they're all built the same way. Maximum firepower, maximum defense, maximum intimidation. The Shadow Fleet has been beating ships like this for millennia. So what would you choose differently?" Marcus pointed to a smaller vessel near the back of the shipyard. It was sleek and fast-looking, clearly built for speed rather than combat. "That one. It's a scout ship, isn't it?" "The Star Whisper, yes. But Marcus, that ship has no heavy weapons. Its shields are minimal. It couldn't survive a real battle against the Shadow Fleet. Maybe that's exactly why it's perfect." Marcus smiled, and Zara caught a glimpse of the stubborn determination that had brought him this far. Every civilization that's faced the Shadow Fleet has tried to outmuscle them. What if we tried to outthink them instead? The next challenge was finding a crew. Marcus had expected this to be the hardest part, but word of his quest had spread throughout the galactic capital. To his surprise, volunteers began appearing at the docking bay where the Star Whisper was being prepared. The first was Kix, a young Vorthak engineer who had been dishonored by his clan for questioning their traditional ways. His natural talent with alien technology could prove invaluable, and his outsider status among his own people gave him something in common with Marcus. "Why would you want to join a suicide mission?" Marcus asked him directly. Kix's mandibles clicked, and what Marcus had learned was amusement among his species. "Because it's not about the mission. It's about proving that being different doesn't make you wrong. You understand that, don't you, human?" The second volunteer surprised everyone, including Marcus. Dr. Lyra Voss was a renowned xenobiologist from the peaceful Kepler Federation. She had spent decades studying extinct civilizations and had published several papers about the Shadow Fleet's historical patterns. "I've been researching them for 20 years, she explained to Marcus as they reviewed star charts in the ship's small conference room. "Every time they appear, they follow certain patterns, but no one has ever been able to get close enough to study them directly and survive. And you think our little scout ship can do what battle fleets couldn't? I think a small, fast ship with the right crew might be able to gather the information we need to finally understand what we're dealing with." The third crew member was perhaps the most unexpected of all. Thane was a Drakmori warrior who had lost his entire family to a Shadow Fleet attack 15 years earlier. He was massive even by Drakmori standards, with scars covering his dark skin and cybernetic implants replacing parts of his body that had been destroyed in various battles. "I've fought them before," he told Marcus in his deep, gravelly voice. "I've seen what they can do. My people think I'm crazy for joining you, but I'd rather die trying something new than live knowing I never tried to avenge my family." The final member of their small crew was someone Marcus hadn't expected to recruit at all. As he was making final preparations for departure, Princess Zara appeared in the docking bay wearing a combat suit and carrying a travel bag. "What are you doing?" Marcus asked, though part of him already knew the answer. "Coming with you." Her voice was calm but determined. "I've been trained in combat, navigation, and xenopsychology. You need someone who understands alien mindsets, and I know more about the Shadow Fleet than most people in the galaxy." "Absolutely not. Your father would kill me, and that's assuming the Shadow Fleet doesn't do it first. My father doesn't know, and he won't until we're already gone." She moved closer to Marcus, and he could see the fierce intelligence in her eyes. "Do you know why he really gave you this task? It's not just because it's impossible. It's because he's hoping that maybe, somehow, someone with a completely different perspective might succeed where everyone else has failed. But you're his daughter. You're royalty. You can't just, 'I can and I will.' This is my choice, Marcus. You're not the only one who wants to prove that conventional thinking isn't always right." Before Marcus could protest further, alarms began sounding throughout the shipyard. Emergency broadcasts crackled over the communication systems in a dozen different languages. But the message was the same in all of them. The Shadow Fleet had been spotted in the Tau Ceti system, only 6 light-years away. "They're attacking the agricultural colonies," Dr. Voss said, checking her instruments. 3 million people live in that system." Marcus looked at his assembled crew, then at Princess Zara. The smart thing to do would be to take more time to prepare, to wait for the battle fleets to respond, to stick to the original plan of a careful search mission. But 3 million innocent people were about to die while the galactic powers argued about tactics and deployment schedules. "All right," he said, making a decision that would change everything. "We leave now. If we push the Star Whisper's engines to maximum, we can reach the Tau Ceti system in 18 hours. The battle fleets won't arrive for at least 2 days, Thane pointed out. We'll be facing the Shadow Fleet alone." "Maybe that's our advantage," Marcus replied, taking his place in the captain's chair. "They'll be expecting massive warships and conventional tactics. They won't be ready for 5 people in a scout ship who have absolutely no idea what they're doing." As the Star Whisper lifted off from the Royal Shipyard, Marcus could see other ships beginning to mobilize for the rescue mission, huge dreadnoughts and carrier ships that represented the might of galactic civilization. They would arrive with overwhelming firepower and proven tactics, and if history was any guide, the Shadow Fleet would defeat them just as they had defeated every other force sent against them. But Marcus and his crew weren't bringing overwhelming firepower. They were bringing something the galaxy hadn't tried yet: pure human stubbornness, alien perspectives that had never been combined before, and the desperate hope that sometimes the impossible just needed someone crazy enough to try it. Course laid in for Tau Ceti. Princess Zara reported from the navigation station. Engine output at maximum efficiency. "Kicks called from engineering. Weapons systems armed," Thane announced grimly. "Scientific sensors calibrated and recording," Dr. Voss added. Marcus looked at the star field ahead of them and thought about all the civilizations that had faced this ancient enemy before. They had all been stronger, more advanced, and better prepared than his little crew, but they had all been thinking the same way, using the same strategies, making the same assumptions. "Take us to warp," Marcus ordered. "Time to show the galaxy what happens when humans stop playing by the rules." The Star Whisper dropped out of warp at the edge of the Tau Ceti system, and immediately every sensor on the ship began screaming warnings. What they saw before them defied everything the galactic powers thought they knew about the Shadow Fleet. The enemy ships weren't the sleek, dark vessels that appeared in most historical records. Instead, the Shadow Fleet consisted of massive, organic-looking structures that seemed to be part machine and part living creature. They moved through space like predators, leaving trails of dark energy that made sensors malfunction and long-range communications impossible. "By the ancestors," Thane whispered, his scarred hands gripping the tactical console. "They're bigger than the reports said." "Much bigger." Dr. Voss was frantically taking readings from her scientific station. The energy signatures are unlike anything in our databases. It's almost like they're not entirely in our dimension. That would explain why conventional weapons have such little effect. How many ships? Marcus asked, trying to keep his voice steady as he watched the alien monstrosities tear through the orbital defense platforms around the third planet. 12 primary vessels, Princess Zara reported from sensors, but they're each the size of a small moon. The largest one is approximately 15 kilometers long. Through the view screen, they could see the agricultural world of New Eden burning. Escape pods and civilian transports were fleeing the planet, but the Shadow Fleet ships were hunting them down like wolves chasing sheep. Marcus watched one of the alien vessels extend what looked like a tentacle made of pure darkness, wrapping it around a refugee ship and simply dissolving it from existence. "We need to do something," Kix said, his mandibles clicking with agitation. "Those are innocent people down there." "With what?" Thane challenged. "Our little ship has one photon cannon and a shield generator designed to stop asteroids, not weapons that can eat matter itself." Marcus studied the scene before them, his mind racing. Every instinct told him to retreat, to wait for the main fleet to not throw their lives away in a hopeless gesture. But then he remembered something from Earth's history, from the old stories his grandfather used to tell about the Second World War and the brave pilots who had faced impossible odds with nothing but courage and determination. "Dr. Voss," he said suddenly, "you said they're not entirely in our dimension. What did you mean by that?" "The energy readings suggest they exist partially in what we call shadow space, a layer of reality adjacent to our own. It's how they appear and disappear so quickly. They phase in and out of our dimension at will. But to attack our ships and planets, they have to be fully in our dimension, right?" "Yes, but only temporarily. They phase back to shadow space the moment they detect incoming fire." Marcus felt a crazy idea forming in his mind. It was the kind of desperate, probably suicidal plan that his academy instructors would have failed him for even suggesting. But academy instructors had never faced the Shadow Fleet. "Kix, can you modify our shield generators?" "Modify them how?" the young Vorthak engineer asked. "Instead of keeping energy out, can you make them keep energy in, like a containment field?" Kix's compound eyes widened as he understood what Marcus was suggesting. "You want to ram one of those things with our shields configured as a net?" "Not ram. Catch. If we can get close enough to wrap a containment field around one of their smaller ships while it's phased into our dimension, maybe we can trap it here long enough to study it properly." "That's insane," Thane said flatly. "Yes, it is," Marcus agreed, "which is probably why no one has tried it before. Dr. Voss, if we could keep one of them locked in our dimension for even a few minutes, what could you learn?" The xenobiologist's fingers flew over her instruments as she ran calculations. Their communication methods, their control systems, maybe even their point of origin. If I'm right about their dimensional nature, forcing them to remain solid might disrupt their entire network. And if you're wrong, we'll be vaporized the instant we get within range, Thane pointed out. Princess Zara looked up from her navigation console. "There's something else. The smaller ships seem to be operating independently, but they're all staying within range of the largest vessel. If that big one is their command ship and we could somehow disable it, the whole fleet might be affected," Marcus finished. "It's worth a shot." "No, it's not," Thane said. "It's suicide. I signed up for a dangerous mission, not for throwing our lives away on a plan that has maybe a 1% chance of working." Marcus turned to face the Drakmori warrior. "Thane, you told me you wanted to avenge your family. This might be the only chance any of us ever get to hurt these things in a way that matters. We can run away and wait for the fleet, and watch the Shadow Fleet disappear into dimensional space like they always do. Or we can try something so crazy that maybe, just maybe, it might actually work." For a long moment, the bridge was silent except for the hum of the ship's systems and the distant sounds of destruction coming through their sensors. Finally, Thane's scarred face showed something that might have been a smile. "When you put it that way," he said, "how can I say no to avenging my family and making history at the same time? What do you need me to do?" "Guard our backs and be ready to fight if this goes wrong," Marcus replied. "Kix, start modifying those shield generators. Dr. Voss, prepare every scanner we have. Zara, plot us a course that will take us right through the middle of their formation." "Through the middle?" she asked. "If we're going to be crazy, we might as well be completely crazy. The command ship is at the center of their formation. If we come in fast and low, using the planet's gravity to mask our approach, We might get close enough to try our containment trick on one of the smaller ships first. As his crew worked to prepare for what was probably the most desperate plan in galactic history, Marcus watched the Shadow Fleet continue their systematic destruction of everything in the system. They moved with purpose and intelligence, not like mindless destroyers, but like beings with a specific goal. "Marcus," Dr. Voss called out, "I'm detecting something strange. They're not just destroying things randomly. They're targeting specific installations, research facilities, communication hubs, anything related to scientific advancement. Why would they care about that? I don't know, but it suggests they're not just here to destroy. They're here to prevent something. Or to find something." Marcus felt another piece of the puzzle click into place. The Shadow Fleet wasn't just an ancient evil that appeared randomly to cause destruction. They had a purpose, a goal that involved keeping the younger races from advancing too far or discovering something they weren't supposed to know. "New plan," he announced. "We're not just going to trap one of their ships. We're going to find out what they're really after, and then we're going to make sure they don't get it." As the Star Whisper began its approach toward the heart of the Shadow Fleet formation, Marcus couldn't help but think about all the mocking laughter he had faced in the Galactic Council chamber. The aliens had dismissed humans as primitive and violent, too young and inexperienced to matter in galactic affairs. They were about to find out just how dangerous it could be to underestimate a species that had learned to fight impossible odds and never give up. The Star Whisper dove through the outer edge of the Shadow Fleet formation like a minnow swimming between sharks. Marcus had ordered all non-essential systems shut down to minimize their energy signature, and they were running on minimal power to avoid detection. The plan was working better than anyone had expected. The massive Shadow Fleet vessels seemed to consider their tiny scout ship beneath notice. "Shield modifications complete," Kix whispered from his engineering station. "But I have to warn you, if this containment field fails while we're holding one of their ships, the energy feedback will probably destroy us." "Noted," Marcus replied, his eyes fixed on the tactical display. "Dr. Voss, are you picking up anything useful from their communications?" "They're not using any communication method I recognize," the scientist reported. "But there's definitely coordination happening. Some kind of quantum entanglement network, maybe. If I'm right, each ship is directly linked to the others through subspace." Princess Zara suddenly looked up from her station with excitement. "I've found something. The smaller ships aren't just escorts. They're dimensional anchors. They're keeping the big ship stable in our reality." "What does that mean?" Marcus asked. "It means if we can disrupt enough of the anchor ships, the larger vessels might be forced back into shadow space, whether they want to go or not." Thane let out a low growl of approval. "Now that sounds like a plan with some real teeth. How many anchor ships would we need to take out?" "Based on the energy patterns, I'd say at least 4 of the 12 smaller vessels. But Marcus, even if your containment idea works, we can only hold one ship at a time. And the moment we grab the first one, every Shadow Fleet vessel in the system will know exactly where we are." Marcus studied the formation ahead of them. The Shadow Fleet had arranged themselves in a complex pattern around the planet, with the massive command ship at the center and the smaller vessels positioned at precise intervals. It reminded him of something he had seen before, but he couldn't quite place the memory. "Wait," he said suddenly. "Dr. Voss, you said they're after research facilities and scientific installations. What if they're not trying to destroy galactic civilization? What if they're trying to prevent us from discovering something specific? Like what? Like the location of their home base? Or their weakness? Or maybe how to travel through dimensional space ourselves?" The pieces were starting to come together in Marcus's mind. The Shadow Fleet appeared every few centuries, always targeting the most advanced civilizations, always disappearing before they could be properly studied. They weren't conquerors. They were guardians, protecting some secret that they couldn't let the younger races discover. "There," Princess Zara pointed to a section of space near the planet's largest moon. "One of the anchor ships has separated from the formation. It's investigating the moon's research station." Marcus saw their opportunity. The isolated anchor ship was smaller than the others, probably the equivalent of a destroyer rather than a cruiser. If they were going to test their containment theory, this was their best chance. "All right, everyone. This is it. Kix, power up the modified shields but keep them in standby mode. Thane, charge our weapons but don't target anything yet. Dr. Voss, I want every sensor we have focused on that ship the moment we grab it. Zara, take us in fast and quiet." The Star Whisper accelerated toward the lone Shadow Fleet vessel. using the moon's mass to hide their approach. As they got closer, Marcus could see that the enemy ship was even stranger than it had appeared from a distance. Its hull seemed to shift and flow like liquid metal, and tendrils of dark energy flickered around its edges like living things. Energy readings are off the charts, Dr. Voss reported. That ship is definitely not entirely in our dimension. It's phasing in and out of reality about once every 30 seconds. Perfect. Kix, prepare to activate the containment field the next time it phases fully into our space. We'll only have a few seconds before it tries to phase out again. They were now less than a kilometer from the Shadow Fleet vessel, close enough to see the intricate patterns carved into its flowing hull. Marcus held his breath as he watched the energy readings fluctuate on Dr. Voss's instruments. Now, she called out. Containment field active. Kix responded immediately. The modified shields expanded outward from the Star Whisper, creating a spherical cage of energy around both ships. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then the Shadow Fleet vessel began to writhe and pulse as if it were in pain. It's working, Dr. Voss shouted over the alarms that had begun sounding throughout their ship. The containment field is preventing it from phasing back to shadow space. I'm getting massive data streams from their quantum network. But their victory was short-lived. Across the star system, every other Shadow Fleet vessel suddenly turned toward their position. The massive command ship began moving with surprising speed, and the remaining anchor ships broke formation to converge on the moon. We've got company, Thane announced grimly. 11 very large, very angry ships heading our way. How long can we hold the containment field? Marcus asked. At current power levels, maybe 2 minutes, Kix replied. But if those other ships start shooting at us, the field will collapse immediately. Marcus made another split-second decision. Dr. Voss, download everything you can in the next 90 seconds. After that, we're letting this thing go and running for our lives. I'm trying, but there's so much information. Their quantum network contains data about hundreds of civilizations, thousands of years of galactic history. Marcus, I think I've found their base of operations. It's not in our galaxy at all. They're from somewhere else entirely. Somewhere else, like where? Like another universe. The Shadow Fleet are refugees, Marcus. They're running from something even worse than they are. This revelation hit Marcus like a physical blow. The Shadow Fleet weren't conquerors or destroyers. They were survivors, trying to prevent the younger races from advancing to the point where they might attract the attention of whatever had driven the Shadow Fleet from their home reality. Incoming fire, Thane called out. 3 of the approaching ships are charging some kind of weapon system. Let the prisoner go, Marcus ordered. Kix, drop the containment field and get us out of here. Wait, Dr. Voss called out. I'm detecting something else. The ship we captured, it's not trying to escape. It's trying to communicate. Through the view screen, they could see the trapped Shadow Fleet vessel had stopped its writhing movements. Instead, patterns of light were flowing across its hull in what looked almost like written language. Can you translate it? Marcus asked. I think so. It's mathematical in nature, using quantum frequency as a base language. Give me a few seconds. The other Shadow Fleet ships were getting closer, their weapons systems charging with ominous energy. Marcus knew they had maybe 30 seconds before the shooting started. Got it, Dr. Voss announced. The message says you understand. Help us. The Devourers come. Marcus felt his blood run cold. The Devourers, whatever they were, they had been powerful enough to drive an entire civilization out of their home universe and into dimensional exile. And now, according to the Shadow Fleet, they were coming here. Drop the field now, he ordered. Signal the Shadow Fleet ship that we want to talk. Marcus, are you insane? Thane protested. The moment we let that thing go, it could destroy us. No, it won't, don't you see? They're not the enemy. They're trying to protect this galaxy from something much worse. We've been fighting the wrong war for thousands of years. As the containment field collapsed and the Shadow Fleet vessel regained its ability to phase between dimensions, Marcus made a decision that would change the course of galactic history. Instead of running away, he ordered Zara to bring them closer to the alien ship. It was time for the first real conversation between the galactic powers and the Shadow Fleet. And based on what they had just learned, the fate of not just one galaxy but possibly all of reality might depend on how that conversation went. The Shadow Fleet ship hung motionless in space before them, its dark hull pulsing with patterns of light that Dr. Voss was frantically trying to decode. The other 11 vessels had stopped their advance but remained in attack formation, creating a tense standoff that could turn deadly at any moment. "Translation complete," Dr. Voss announced. "They're asking us to come aboard. Specifically, they want to speak with the human." "Just me?" Marcus asked, surprised. According to their message, they've been monitoring galactic communications for decades. They know about humans, about our recent arrival on the galactic stage. They say our species has something they need. Thane's scarred face showed deep skepticism. This could be a trap. We capture one of their ships and suddenly they want to have a friendly chat? That doesn't make sense. Actually, it does, Princess Zara said thoughtfully. Think about it from their perspective. For thousands of years, they've been appearing just long enough to destroy research facilities and advanced technology, then disappearing before anyone could communicate with them. They've been trying to slow down galactic progress without having to explain why. But our containment field proved that someone had finally developed technology that could actually threaten their operations, Dr. Voss added. We forced them to change tactics. Marcus studied the alien vessel through the view screen. Every instinct warned him that boarding an enemy ship was suicide, but his gut told him this might be their only chance to understand what was really happening. "I'm going over there," he decided. "Absolutely not," Princess Zara said immediately. "If you die, this entire mission fails. If I don't go, billions of people might die when the real enemy arrives. Besides, you said it yourself. They specifically asked for the human. Maybe there's something about our species that gives us an advantage in this situation." Kix looked up from his engineering station. "I could modify one of our environmental suits to include a communication interface. If their quantum network is as sophisticated as it appears, you might be able to establish a direct mental link." "Mental link?" Marcus felt a chill run down his spine. "Are you talking about letting alien minds into my head?" "More like creating a translation bridge," Dr. Voss explained. "Human brains process information differently than most alien species. Your neural patterns might be compatible with their quantum communication system in ways that other species aren't." 20 minutes later, Marcus found himself floating through space in a modified environmental suit, approaching an airlock that had opened in the side of the Shadow Fleet vessel. The interior of the alien ship was unlike anything he had expected. Instead of corridors and rooms, he found himself in what seemed like a vast organic chamber, filled with flowing streams of liquid light. The beings he met inside were even more surprising. They weren't the monstrous creatures he had imagined, but tall, graceful beings that seemed to be made partly of flesh and partly of living energy. Their leader introduced itself through the quantum communication link as Keeper Vraxthan, and its thoughts carried a weight of sadness that made Marcus's heart ache. "Your species confuses us. Human Marcus," Vraxthan's mental voice resonated through the quantum link. "We have observed your people for only a few decades. But in that time you have shown capabilities that took other species centuries to develop." Marcus looked around the organic chamber, trying to process the alien environment while maintaining the mental connection. "What kind of capabilities?" "Adaptation. Innovation under pressure. The ability to find solutions that others consider impossible." Vraxthan moved closer, and Marcus could see that the being's form was constantly shifting, as if it existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously. "When we learned that a human had requested marriage to the daughter of King Valdros, we knew the time had come to make contact." "You've been watching the royal court?" "We watch everything, human Marcus. We have to. The Devourers are coming, and when they arrive, they will consume not just this galaxy but every reality connected to it. We have been trying to slow down galactic development to delay that arrival, but your species has changed the equation." Through the quantum link, Vraxthan shared images that made Marcus's mind reel. He saw vast fleets of ships that looked like living nightmares, entities that fed on entire star systems, and realities being torn apart and devoured by creatures that existed beyond normal space and time. "The Devourers are attracted to advanced consciousness," Vraxthan explained. "The more sophisticated a civilization becomes, the brighter it shines in the dimensional matrix. Eventually that light draws their attention. So you've been keeping us primitive to protect us?" "We tried. But your species develops too quickly. In 5 years you went from first contact to threatening our dimensional anchoring technology. At this rate you will attract the Devourer's attention within a decade." Marcus felt anger rising in his chest. "So your solution is to destroy our research facilities and keep us from advancing? That's not protection, that's oppression." We thought so too until we studied your neural patterns more closely. Fraxton's form pulsed with something that might have been excitement. Human consciousness operates differently than any species we have encountered. Your brains process information in patterns that seem to naturally resist the devourer's detection methods. What does that mean? It means humans might be able to advance technologically without shining as brightly in the dimensional matrix. Your species could be the key to building defenses that the devourers cannot easily detect or counter. The implications hit Marcus like a thunderbolt. You're saying humans could help you fight back against these things? More than that. With human innovation and our dimensional technology, we might be able to create weapons and defenses that could actually stop them permanently. Marcus thought about his crew waiting on the Star Whisper, about Princess Zara and her faith in human potential, about all the aliens who had mocked him in the Galactic Council chamber. What would you need from us? Partnership. True cooperation between the Shadow Fleet and the Galactic powers. We would share our knowledge of dimensional technology and the Devourer's weaknesses. In return, human scientists would work with us to develop new approaches to the coming war. And if the Galactic powers refuse, Raxton's mental voice grew heavy with sorrow, then we will have no choice but to continue our current strategy. We will destroy enough advanced technology to keep this galaxy dark and unnoticed for as long as possible. It will buy time, but eventually the Devourers will find us anyway. Marcus closed his eyes and thought about everything he had learned. The Shadow Fleet weren't invaders or destroyers. They were refugees fighting a desperate holding action against an enemy that could destroy reality itself. And somehow humanity had become the key to changing the balance of power in that ancient war. I need to get back to my ship, he said finally. My crew needs to hear this directly from you. Agreed. But human Marcus, there is something else you should know. The marriage challenge that King Valdros gave you, we influenced his decision. We needed a way to bring a human into direct contact with us without triggering a galactic panic. You've been manipulating the whole situation? We have been creating opportunities. The choices have all been yours. Your decision to attempt the impossible, your crew's willingness to follow you, your refusal to give up when faced with overwhelming odds. These are purely human traits that give us hope. As Marcus prepared to return to his ship, Fraxton shared one final image through the quantum link. It showed the Star Whisper surrounded by the Shadow Fleet vessels, but instead of being under attack, it was being escorted toward the massive command ship like an honored guest. Your crew has already proven their worth, Fraxton explained. Dr. Voss's analysis of our quantum network in 90 seconds accomplished what our scientists needed months to achieve. The young Vorthak engineer's shield modifications showed innovation we had not considered. The Drakmori warrior's tactical assessment was more accurate than our own, and Princess Zara's dimensional calculations were flawless. What about me? What did I prove? You proved that humans can see past fear and hatred to recognize potential allies. You chose communication over conflict, when every logical analysis suggested we were enemies. That is the most important skill of all in the war to come. As Marcus returned to the Star Whisper, he knew that everything was about to change. The Shadow Fleet's offer of alliance would shake the foundations of galactic society. Some species would welcome the partnership, while others would see it as surrender to an ancient enemy. But for the first time since the mission began, Marcus felt genuine hope. Humanity had been dismissed as primitive and inexperienced by the established galactic powers. Now it turned out that those very qualities might be exactly what the galaxy needed to survive the greatest threat it had ever faced. The real test would come when they returned to the galactic capital and Marcus had to convince King Valdros and the Galactic Council that their greatest enemy could become their most valuable ally. The journey back to the galactic capital took 3 days, but it felt like 3 years to Marcus. The Star Whisper was now escorted by a full Shadow Fleet formation, including the massive command ship that had terrorized civilizations for millennia. The sight of their small scout vessel flying alongside the legendary destroyers would have been unthinkable just a week. Dr. Voss spent most of the trip analyzing the data that Keeper Vraxton had shared with them. The information about the Devourers was more terrifying than anything in galactic history books, but it also contained potential solutions that no one had ever imagined. Look at this, she called Marcus over to her station. The Devourers feed on consciousness itself, but they can only detect it through dimensional resonance patterns. Human brain activity creates resonance patterns that are almost invisible to their detection methods. Why us specifically? Marcus asked. Near as I can tell, it has to do with how humans process paradox and contradiction. Most alien species think in very logical, linear patterns. But humans can hold contradictory ideas in their minds simultaneously without mental stress. That cognitive flexibility creates quantum static that masks our consciousness signatures. Princess Zara looked up from her own analysis station. If that's true, then human-designed technology might be naturally stealth-enabled against devourer detection. We could build entire fleets that they couldn't track. More than that, Kix added excitedly. I've been studying the Shadow Fleet's dimensional anchor technology. With human cognitive patterns providing the base algorithms, we might be able to create stable gateways between realities. Imagine being able to evacuate entire civilizations to safe dimensions if the devourers attack. Thane was less optimistic. All of this assumes the Galactic Council will agree to work with the Shadow Fleet. But these are the same beings who have been destroying our colonies and research stations for thousands of years. Asking the galactic powers to trust them is like asking prey animals to trust their predators. Then we'll have to make them understand, Marcus said firmly. We have proof now. We have evidence of the real threat, and we have a solution that could save everyone. When they finally arrived at the galactic capital, the sight that greeted them was unlike anything in recorded history. The massive Shadow Fleet vessels took up positions around the space station, but instead of attacking, they simply waited. The dimensional signature of their presence sent shockwaves through every sensor array in the system. Emergency sessions of the Galactic Council were called immediately. Military fleets from dozens of species began converging on the capital, expecting to find it under attack. Instead, they found the Shadow Fleet maintaining a respectful distance while the Star Whisper docked at the Royal Station. Marcus and his crew were escorted immediately to the throne room, where King Valdros waited with representatives from every major galactic power. The tension in the chamber was so thick it could have been cut with a knife. Explain yourself, human, the king commanded, his 6 eyes blazing with barely controlled fury. You leave on a mission to destroy the Shadow Fleet, and you return with them as escorts. Are you a hero or a traitor? Marcus stepped forward, feeling the weight of 1,000 stares upon him. Your Majesty, I am neither. I am simply a human who discovered that we have been fighting the wrong enemy for thousands of years. The chamber erupted in angry voices and alien sounds of disbelief. Ambassador Krex of the Zephyrian Empire rose to his feet, his serpentine body coiling with rage. Preposterous! The Shadow Fleet has destroyed countless worlds and killed billions of our people. They are the greatest threat this galaxy has ever known. No, Marcus replied calmly. They are refugees, and they have been trying to protect us from the real threat. An enemy so terrible that it drove them from their home universe and forces them to live between dimensions. Dr. Voss stepped forward and activated a holographic display that showed the data they had gathered about the Devourers. The images of reality-consuming entities and destroyed universes created a shocked silence in the chamber. The beings we call the Shadow Fleet are survivors of a war that destroyed their entire reality, she explained. They have been trying to keep our galaxy's technological development slow enough to avoid attracting the attention of the Devourers, entities that feed on advanced consciousness and can literally consume entire realities. Princess Zara took over the presentation, her royal status lending weight to her words. The Shadow Fleet has offered us an alliance. They will share their dimensional technology and knowledge of the Devourer's weaknesses. In return, they ask for our help in developing new approaches to fighting an enemy that conventional weapons cannot stop. Counselor Thara from the Hive Worlds clicked her mandibles skeptically. And why should we trust these destroyers? How do we know this is not some elaborate deception? Before Marcus could answer, the air in the center of the chamber began to shimmer. Keeper Vraxthen materialized through dimensional phase, its form translucent and shifting between states of matter. Because, the Shadow Fleet leader said, its quantum voice somehow translating into every language in the chamber simultaneously, deception would serve no purpose. If we wished to destroy you, we would have done so long ago. We seek alliance because extinction serves no one. The alien delegates recoiled from Vraxthen's presence, but King Valdros remained steady on his throne. Speak then, Ancient One. Convince us that cooperation with our oldest enemy serves our interests. Vraxthen gestured. and the holographic display changed to show real-time images from deep space monitoring stations. The Devourers have already begun their approach to this galaxy. Our calculations suggest they will arrive within 2 standard years. When they do, every advanced civilization in this galaxy will be consumed unless we work together to stop them. 2 years? The king's voice carried a note of shock. Are you certain? We have been tracking their progress for decades. Your rapid technological advancement has accelerated their timeline. They are drawn to the quantum signature of advanced consciousness, and this galaxy now shines brightly enough to attract their attention. Marcus saw his opportunity and stepped forward again. Your Majesty, we've discovered that human consciousness creates different quantum patterns than other species. We might be able to develop technology that the Devourers cannot easily detect or counter, but we need access to Shadow Fleet dimensional technology to make it work. Ambassador Krex hissed angrily. You ask us to trust our greatest enemies based on the word of a species that has been part of galactic civilization for less than a decade. This is madness. Perhaps, King Valdro said thoughtfully, but it is also our only hope. He looked directly at Marcus. You came here seeking my daughter's hand in marriage. You claimed that humans could prove their worth through great deeds. If what you say is true, then working with our ancient enemies to save the galaxy would certainly qualify as a great deed. The king stood, his massive form commanding attention from every being in the chamber. I propose a test. Let the human and his allies work with the Shadow Fleet to develop these new defenses. If they can prove that cooperation is possible and effective, then we will consider a full alliance. And if they fail? Asked Counselor Thara. Then we prepare for war as we always have, and hope that conventional weapons will somehow prove sufficient against an enemy that has consumed entire universes. As the chamber erupted in debate among the various delegates, Princess Zara moved closer to Marcus. You know, this is just the beginning, she said quietly. Even if my father agrees to the test, convincing the entire galaxy to work with the Shadow Fleet will take time we don't have. Marcus nodded, watching Vraxton phase in and out of visibility as it answered questions from the alien delegates. Then we'll have to work fast, and we'll have to prove that humans really can bridge the gap between ancient enemies and turn them into allies. The stakes had never been higher. The fate of the galaxy rested on whether a young human and his unlikely crew could succeed, where thousands of years of warfare had failed. But as Marcus looked at his team, the innovative engineer, the brilliant scientist, the fierce warrior, and the brave princess, he felt that familiar surge of human determination. They had come this far by refusing to accept the impossible. Now they would have to do it one more time, on a scale that would determine the survival of all known reality. 6 months after the alliance was formed, the joint Human Shadow Fleet research station orbiting the galactic capital had become the most heavily defended location in known space. The facility itself was a marvel of combined technology. Human innovation merged with Shadow Fleet dimensional science to create something entirely new. Marcus stood in the central command center, watching data streams from early warning sensors positioned throughout the galaxy. The Devourers were still 18 months away, but their advanced scouts had already been detected on the outer rim. The race against time had become desperate. Status report, he called out to his team, who had grown from 5 people to nearly 1,000 researchers, engineers, and military personnel from dozens of species. Dr. Voss looked up from her analysis station, her hair now streaked with gray from months of intense work. The prototype quantum stealth system is showing promising results. We've successfully hidden 3 entire star systems from Devourer detection, and the dimensional anchor network is holding steady. Kix, now wearing the insignia of chief engineer, reported next. The human-designed consciousness dampeners are working better than we hoped. By modulating the quantum resonance of advanced civilizations, we can make them appear primitive to Devourer sensors while maintaining full technological capability. What about the offensive systems? Marcus asked. Thane, who had been promoted to tactical coordinator, stepped forward. The dimensional disruptor weapons are ready for field testing. If our calculations are correct, they should be able to damage Devourer entities by forcing them back into normal space, where conventional weapons can affect them. Princess Zara, now serving as diplomatic liaison between the various species involved in the project, brought the most important news. We've convinced 70% of galactic civilizations to join the alliance, The others are still skeptical, but they're at least allowing the installation of stealth systems in their territories. Keeper Vrax then materialized beside them, its form more solid than it had been during their first meeting. The Shadow Fleet leader had been spending increasing amounts of time in normal space as the alliance deepened. The advanced scouts have been probing our outer defenses, Vrax then reported. They have not yet detected the stealth systems, but they are beginning to show curiosity about the apparent absence of advanced civilizations in sectors they know should be populated. Marcus studied the tactical displays showing Devourer scout positions. How long before they realize something is wrong? Perhaps 6 months. When the main force arrives, they will conduct a thorough scan regardless of what the scouts report. If our defenses fail at that point, the entire galaxy will be exposed. Then we need to be ready for a full test in 6 months, not 18. Marcus turned to address the entire command center. All research projects are now on priority schedule. We're moving up the timeline. Over the following months, the galaxy transformed in ways that would have been unimaginable before the Alliance. Shadow Fleet vessels worked alongside ships from every major species, sharing technology and tactical knowledge that had been gained over millions of years of fighting the Devourers. Human ingenuity proved to be the catalyst that made everything work. Where other species saw insurmountable technical problems, human engineers found creative solutions. Where ancient tactical doctrines had failed for eons, human military strategists suggested new approaches that combined multiple species' strengths. But the real test came when the Devourer main force finally arrived. Marcus was in the command center when the alarms began sounding. Through the view screen, he could see space itself beginning to darken as reality-consuming entities emerged from dimensional space. The Devourers were even more terrifying in person than they had been in Vraxton's shared memories. All stealth systems online, Dr. Voss reported. Quantum dampeners at maximum efficiency. As far as their sensors can tell, this galaxy should appear almost completely uninhabited. They're scanning, Thane announced from Tactical. Massive sensor sweeps across multiple dimensions. Energy output is off the charts. For several hours, the galaxy held its breath. Billions of beings across thousands of worlds waited in hidden cities and camouflaged installations, hoping that human technology combined with Shadow Fleet science would be enough to hide them from destruction. Then the Devourers began to move away. They're leaving, Princess Zara said in amazement. The stealth systems worked. They can't detect us. But Marcus wasn't ready to celebrate yet. Keep monitoring. If this is anything like human military tactics, they'll send out scouts to investigate any anomalies. He was right. 3 days later, a smaller Devourer force returned to investigate what their sensors registered as empty space, but what their ancient memories told them should be a thriving galactic civilization. This is it, Marcus announced to the combined fleet that had been hiding in dimensional space. If we're going to fight them, now is the time. We have a small force isolated from the main group. The battle that followed lasted 6 hours and changed the course of galactic history. For the first time in millions of years, Devourer entities were not just driven away but actually destroyed. The dimensional disruptor weapons forced them into normal space, where combined fleets could engage them with conventional weapons. Human tactical flexibility, combined with Shadow Fleet dimensional knowledge and the diverse capabilities of dozens of alien species, proved devastatingly effective. When the last Devourer scout was destroyed, the celebration across the galaxy was unlike anything in recorded history. Species that had been enemies for millennia celebrated together. The Shadow Fleet, after eons of exile, had finally found allies capable of standing against their ancient foe. 1 year later, Marcus stood in the same throne room where his journey had begun, but everything had changed. King Valdros looked down at him with 6 eyes full of respect rather than skepticism. "You asked for my daughter's hand in marriage," the king said formally. "You claimed that humans could prove their worth through great deeds. I think it is fair to say that saving the entire galaxy from extinction qualifies as a great deed." The assembled delegates, now including Shadow, fleet representatives, erupted in cheers and alien sounds of approval. Even Ambassador Krex managed what passed for applause among his species. Princess Zara stepped forward, and Marcus was struck again by her beauty and intelligence. "The question is," she said with a smile, "are you still interested in marrying an alien princess? After everything we've been through, it might seem rather ordinary." Marcus took her hand, thinking about the impossible journey that had brought them to this moment. Your Highness, I've learned that humans have a talent for making the ordinary extraordinary. I think we can handle one more impossible challenge. As they were married in a ceremony that combined traditions from dozens of worlds, Marcus reflected on how much had changed since that day when the Galactic Council had mocked a presumptuous human. The galaxy had learned that being young and inexperienced didn't mean being weak or worthless. Sometimes it meant having the fresh perspective needed to solve problems that had seemed impossible for millennia. The Shadow Fleet had found a new home and new allies. The galactic powers had discovered that their greatest enemies could become their most valuable friends. And humanity had proven that determination, creativity, and the stubborn refusal to accept defeat could overcome obstacles that had seemed insurmountable. But perhaps most importantly, they had all learned that the universe was vast enough for cooperation instead of conflict, and that working together could accomplish miracles that none of them could achieve alone. As Marcus and Princess Zara danced at their wedding reception, surrounded by beings from across the galaxy and between dimensions, he couldn't help but smile at the memory of all those alien delegates who had once mocked the human who wanted to marry a king's daughter. They weren't laughing anymore.